हिस्टोरिकल अंडरपिनिंग में या कैसे कुछ जो वाटरशेड है ना, एवोल्यूशन ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, उसको थोड़ा समझते हैं. देखो, दिस पार्टली हैज टू डील विथ आई वुड इमेजिन modern Indian history, because the roots are lying very, very deep into the Mughals letting some Europeans to come in our country, and then when they had those financial control going in their hand, they started experimenting with some of those what we call as this administrative control also. Interesting part is that they did not bring their own money. A lot of money was borrowed from India only. Those whatever Jagat Seths, as we used to call them, have you heard about it? Jagat Seths, and then they would lend them money, and they would basically, with Indian money, Indian people, Indian goods, they started getting more and more power, and then building empires for them, not only for India, but other places in Africa and other places in the world. Who were the first who tried venturing into India from Europe? Portuguese. Portuguese, Portuguese. Have you heard about Guinea? Papua New Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, lots of places Guinea मिलता है ना. Guinea basically एक word है. This Guinea word comes from Tuareg. Tuareg is a tribe in North Africa. Portuguese got that word from there. So Guinea became a Portuguese word. And इसका मतलब होता है trading. So they came as a trader and started expanding, but nevertheless the British were more smart and then got some favorable locations, and they grew faster than what they could grow. And as a consequence, we ended up having British sitting on our head for nearly 200 years. So that's what we have got. That let's write some watershed days. 1773. I think in your history you must have read about it. 1773. This directly does not go into Constitution of India, but it is an event that has an influence on the subsequent emergence of Indian democracy. So, 1773. What is coming to your mind? You may have read about it. What is that? Regulating Act came in 1773. And the power went to Crown or the Parliament? Parliament of Britain, East India Company. Crown came little later. Parliament. Regulating Act 1773, but the British Parliament had administrative intervention in Indian affairs. Administrative intervention in Indian affairs. So it was not basically the total direct control, but then they were indirectly involved in that. A more direct approach comes in when it comes 1858. What is that 1858? Crown getting the direct involvement, in the affairs. Constitution is not on the horizon yet. Constitution is just not around. So, Crown getting the power, and in between, the three Charters Act came into existence. 3 Charters Act, 13, 33, 1813, 1833, 1853. That provided provisions and rules for provisions and rules for Indian administration. 1853 वाला ज़्यादा important है नहीं? 1853? The concept of civil services came under 1853. Sometime in PT they show some interest of this nature. So one has to be careful about this. So 1853, that came into existence. And I think I would like to particularly mention 1919 wala. What was 1919? Sorry? GUIA 1919, and backdrop is Montagu-Chelmsford. Montagu-Chelmsford. And what is that word they use? Divide et impera. Have you heard about this phrase? Divide et impera. Divide and rule. The separate electorates. Those ideas came around that time, and then the kind of fissure they created in Indian society, we have not been able to bridge till date. So that's the something which is what I like you to keep in mind. Our constitution tried really attending that big time. Nevertheless, we have the more formal there were lots of cabinet mission plan and those things. I hope they have come as part of your discussion in your history classes. But I think if you really want to go for the structure of Indian constitution that we have today, that is inspired by GOIA 1935. The structure, the evolution of the structure of the Indian constitution is inspired by Government of India Act 1935. Particularly the federal structure. Federal structure, provincial autonomy, federal structure, provincial autonomy. That comes from Government of India Act 1935. So, I suppose the Charter Act, the events of 73, 1858, 1935 and 1919. These are some of the major watersheds that are in the backdrop of the evolution of Indian Constitution, and formally, though we do not take it UK having any authority in telling us that you go make your own constitution. We had started making our own constitution much before. But from the British law, Independence of India Act. Remember, if they form a, if they ask a PT question, formerly India, which was a British territory, a British colony, got the authority to make constitution. Of course, they do not have the authority to give us the constitution. We had already started in 1946 itself. But then, if the wording of the constitution, wording of the question is like that, it comes from Independence of India Act 1947. Can we just keep in mind? So, Independence of India Act 1947 also talks about the British accepting India the authority of making its own constitution. We had already started in 1946 itself. Our job had begun. We were making the constitution, but formal acceptance for British, for themselves, not for us. Please again be very careful about it. We are not saying that they are having legitimacy to tell us that, hey, you make a constitution. But they to accept that we can make our own constitution formally comes under Independence of India Act 1947. Is that coming clear to you? So please look at the wordings of the UPSC questions and accordingly in PT decide that which one to be picked up.